Hello, everybody. Well, Bug Dave back again. This time with my actual microphone, so I don't sound like I'm underneath a bus or something like that. So it's nice to have the gear back. It really does make a difference.
And
So
this is old Buckdell saying it is nice for you to have the gear back. It does make a
it
difference.
makes a difference for you too. Eh? You can
I
actually
said,
hear
I
me
said,
now.
yeah, I hear you really well. Okay.
Yeah. What's going on there? Yeah. So I am again on the road. I'm in Nashville right now, enjoying the nice cool weather here. We had a nice it was 50. Well, I had to get up at 5 o'clock to take my son's family to the airport. They're off to Hawaii for a week or so. So that's kind of nice. So
Ah,
I'm dog
uh,
sitting. I'm dog sitting for a week. So which will be fun.
well, I find it interesting. That's not bad duty in my view from where you are. But being in Nashville, I was going to ask you, have you? I mean, I see there's some country western stuff on television, and anytime they're promoting that kind of topic,
Mm-hmm.
Nashville comes up, and there's inevitably, it's almost like reminds me of the what's that Louisiana district that's so famous? The name of the street.
Oh, where they have Mardi Gras,
Yeah, the Mardi Gras
French
street,
Quarter,
the
French
French
Quarter.
Quarter. So it
Mm-hmm.
just has a resemblance of that. Have you had a chance to actually stroll down either side of that sidewalk?
We excuse me, we have done a lot of that in the past before our son and his wife had children. And we used to come out and see them all the time, and we'd always end up down on Broadway, strolling
That's what it's
Broadway.
called, Broadway.
Yeah, and it's a fun place because it's just one bar after another, and you got all these young singers in there playing their hearts out for tips, hoping for a big break. So you get to hear a lot of entertainment, and you have a lot of fun. It's a hoot. It's a
So,
hoot.
so never having been there, but is it like a blocked off street? Is there still traffic on the street?
Oh,
Is
there's
it good?
still traffic. Yeah, there's still
Is it a good
traffic.
walk-in
Yeah,
street? Is it a
it's a
nice
wide
wide
it's a
sidewalk?
wide street. Yeah, it's got big sidewalks, and of course it's got side streets that are full of the stuff too. But yeah, going down Broadway is the thing. That's the thing to do, and you can
About
buy
how
yourself
many
a couple
blocks is
pair
that?
of you can buy yourself a couple pair of cowboy boots. Yeah, big old hat, whatever you need. It's here. It's here on Broadway. It's
So, I
fun.
mean, how many blocks is that? Would you say like New York block?
Oh boy, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks maybe. Not sure.
But about that, 4 or 5 city blocks and it's just full of
Yeah,
little. It's an artery with a lot of veins on either side of it,
yeah, yeah.
with all imaginable, the typical touristy stuff,
Yeah.
plus live entertainment and so on and so forth. So you did get to see that, but I know you've developed I think a kind of unique means of transportation, and I admit you go to great length to use it. You have to disassemble it sometime and reassemble it. I'm
You must
talking
be
about
talking
your
about my
bike.
bike.
I'm talking about your bike. So have you got a chance to ride down around those areas? I mean, is it?
I rode yesterday already. Actually, I keep a bike here in Nashville, so it's always fueled, ready to go. And so I did a ride with the boys, the grandsons, and my daughter-in-law yesterday. We went down to Shelby Park, cruised through Shelby Park, and it's the 7-year-old said it was either his first, second, or third longest bike ride ever. So it was another milestone for him. It was a good time.
So is that near? Is that literally located in the downtown along the river there?
Well,
Something.
we're in East Nashville. Okay, so that's kind of across the river, but the river swings down. There's a beautiful park right next to their house. I mean, it's acres and acres and acres, and it's hilly, and they've got a golf course there, and they've got a
Hmm.
frisbee course there, and they've got half a dozen ball fields and all kind of stuff. It's a beautiful beautiful park. They've got ponds with ducks and fish and all that sort of thing, so you can fish. And then they've got a trail system. They've got a paved trail system that goes down along the river and through the woods. It goes here and there and everywhere, and you can go on it for I think it's like 24 miles you can do.
It
Altogether.
wasn't an old rail line or nothing like that, like the trails to rails and. PA
I
or something?
I don't think so. I don't think it was rails to trails. No, I think because it just kind of cruises along there, and part of it might have been rails to trails. Once there's a big transom bridge it's like a spiral. It's a spiral hill. Okay, they've built a spiral hill up to this bridge, and then you can ride across the river and then hook up with then a couple more trails shoot off
On the other side.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it
It's
sounds really
wonderful.
interesting.
It's
And
wonderful, and it really is. Yeah.
well, if you ride, I mean, you were riding with the family, and I know you do that too. But when you go off on one of these adventures yourself, I always felt that you had a big advantage over the average tourist because you saw you saw every garbage can, you saw every alley you could go down, every road, that no car would even attempt to go down for fear they'd be lost.
Oh yeah,
You never get
yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah.
So, well, anyhow, you're having a great time up
I
there.
am having a great time, and it's only just begun. It's only just begun. So yeah,
That's right. You're a week, just you and the missus and the dog. So there you
and the
go.
dogs. Yeah, yeah. We're watching their dog, and we're watching the neighbor's dog for a couple of days too, because the neighbor went away. So we're doing double dog duty. It's a
There
hoot.
you go.
It's a
I'm
hoot.
telling you,
We're
everybody's thinking how tough you got it.
I got it tough. Yeah, yeah.
So what
Gee.
else is new on what's
Oh,
on
hey,
your
well,
brain?
we just had a super moon a couple of days ago, if you recall. Well, maybe it's a week ago now.
Did you see that from there
Well, I was in where was I when I saw the super moon?
down in
I was
Florida?
still in I was in Pittsburgh when it started. It was a couple of days, and then
Oh,
we saw it at I think it might have peaked on maybe October 2nd. I'm not
hmm.
sure. So anybody had a birthday on October 2nd, happy birthday, because you had a super moon birthday. So the best to all you out there. Moonbeams from the Bucks. How's that?
It's fascinating that the view of that moon bright in the sky just never seems to wear off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's been going on for centuries, right? And
yeah.
it's always a big to do. Big moon tonight. You can see it with your naked eye. And you have a little telescope, don't you? I think I saw you had one of them.
I do have a telescope that doesn't get much use, unfortunately.
Well, one time I tried to look at the moon through a big telescope. First, I had a hard time finding the moon.
Uh-huh.
Finally got it zeroed in, and it's like, like, well, look, there's a giant crater right there, and you can see
Right
all
there.
this. However, once you've examined it 20 times, it's sort of in the road. You know what I mean? You want to look at something further away, like Venus or something.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad you saw that.
Yeah. Hey, in breaking news, the writer's strike is over, so we need to comment on that since we're sort of writers. We're not in the union or anything, but we do some writing here and there. Believe it or not, folks, this is not all ad lib. Once in a while, we write something down. But I see. So all the late night guys are back since the strike is over, and there was a clip where each of them made a comment. I thought Colbert's comment was the funniest. He said we've been off the air for 154 indictments. That's
Well,
good.
so
That's
they had a
good.
lot to write about, I suppose.
Oh man. So yeah.
I often wondered if I assume the monologue it must be scripted. Obviously, they
Oh
write that
yeah,
and they
yeah,
agree
yeah.
to that.
That's what
And
the
he and
writers
he
do.
and
Yeah.
he reads that.
Yep.
He agrees to that and he performs that as written or whatever. But do you think that all that other stuff? I mean, those guests and things like that, they wouldn't script all that, do they? I mean, what all are they writing? The questions, maybe the questions, I
Well, I
suppose.
mean, I guess a lot of them just wouldn't come on TV in support of the writers' strike, and there's also the actors' strike has not been solved yet, not been
No.
solved yet. So it's kind of a solidarity thing, I guess. Yeah,
Well, I'm glad they're back, although I'll never stay up that late to watch any of them.
yeah, and depending which press you read, it was the contract was either a resounding success for the writers or it was kind of a just nothing to them. So I don't know. But they did get some assurances over AI not replacing them, and not being given AI generated scripts to clean up and that sort of thing. So that's a good thing. They didn't get, I don't think they didn't get a ton of money. So I don't know, on a strict dollar basis, they didn't do great, but they did okay, I guess. So anyway.
Well, I'm happy they're back to work and somewhat satisfied or always satisfied. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You have to, you got to be in their shoes. You don't know how it feels like until it happens to you.
Yeah.
So if they're happy, I'm all for it. Glad for them.
And I think, what's going to happen here is, well, when I look back in the steel industry days, when I was in the steel industry, and inevitably, there'd be a strike, and then there would be a new contract, and it would, raise wages and benefits and that sort of thing. And at the same time, a certain fraction of the workforce would go away. So, that was kind of the trade-off. And I think that's the same thing that's happening here.
Your jobs are lost.
Yeah, it's a trade-off, that's what happens. Let me talk about something else. If you still have time. You still with me?
I'm listening.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I never leave you until I say goodbye. That kind of thing.
Okay. Listen, well, we give our public service announcements from time to time.
Yeah.
And I think they're generally useful. Sometimes they're a little bit tongue in cheek or half a tongue in cheek, but they are. I think they are generally useful to people, even if you have to laugh at some of them. But I think what I'm going to give here is our most important public service announcement ever. And I'm going to thank listener Joseph from Schaffhausen, who sent an article from the Washington Post. The Washington Post got their information from an article published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So this is a serious one, and it's the results of this study just show how pervasive the consequences of sitting can be, and suggest that exercise by itself may not protect us. Now, as I said, I'm going to read chunks of this because it's pretty important. And in the liner notes, we'll have a link to the article. We'll have a link to the Washington Post article, and that article has a link to the JAMA article. But you can only read a short summary of that unless you pay $50 or something. But anyway, okay. It says, in the news that we shouldn't take sitting down, a study just published in the Journal of the American Medical Association finds that people who stay seated for long hours at work and home are at much higher risk of developing dementia than people who sit less. The negative effects of sitting can be so strong, researchers found, that even people who regularly exercise face a higher risk if they sit for much of the day. The study involved almost 50,000 men and women aged 60 or over, and it supports the idea that more time spent in sedentary behaviors increases one's risk of dementia, said this professor from Boston University, and he's the author of the book 7 Steps to Managing Your Aging Memory. He was not involved in the study, but he's commenting on it here. It says, the downsides of oversitting are well known to scientists and most of the rest of us. Past research shows that people who sit throughout the day, accumulating multiple hours of sedentary time at the office, commuting, and at home in front of TVs and computers, are more likely to develop heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and other illnesses, and die prematurely compared to people who often get up and move around. Now, how much do people sit? So the new study, the U.S. study took British data that they had pooled over a seven-year time period for 50,000 people. A lot of these people were wearing a wrist bracelet or a wrist monitor that actually knew how much time you were sitting down and not moving, that sort of thing. Many of them wore sophisticated activity trackers for a week after joining the study to minutely record their movements and stillness throughout the day. So again, it was 50,000 people, men and women aged 60 or older, who did not have dementia when they joined the study. So earlier we talked about heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. And now we're throwing dementia in as well as one of the dangers of a sedentary lifestyle. So, you know, it didn't count when you were sleeping. It's only when you were sitting or lying down but not sleeping. Then they checked people's medical status for the next 7 years or so, looking for hospital or death records detailing a dementia diagnosis of any kind. Finally, they cross-checked sitting habits and brain health, and they found strong correlations. Here you go. If the men and women sat for at least 10 hours a day, which many of them did, their risk for developing dementia within the next 7 years was 8% higher than if they sat for fewer than 10 hours. The risks ballooned from there, reaching a 63% greater risk for dementia for people who spent at least 12 hours chair-bound. So that's pretty spooky statistics here. And the other thing they found is exercise doesn't undo the damage that sitting does. People who worked out but then plopped into chairs for 10 hours or more were as prone to dementia as people who had not exercised much at all. It looks like you can't exercise your way out of the risk, this doctor said. So
That's scary.
That's scary, yeah. So I'm only reading maybe a third of this article to you, but you can get the whole article.
So
okay,
I wonder if that applies to truck drivers, Dave.
I'm guessing it does.
Oh boy.
I'm guessing it does.
Okay, I do know they have a lot of problems in the guys that do it for a long time.
Yeah.
They have a lot of leg issues, and you know, the sitting like that all the time, even though they do jump around a lot, many hours driving.
Yeah. So here's the kind of the ending paragraphs. So how do I lower my risk? That's the big question everybody's asking, right? So the best way to reduce dementia risk is to find ways to sit less overall. People in our study who were sedentary for 9.5 hours a day didn't have any increased risk, he said. Isn't that something? 9.5 hours, you're okay. 10 hours, you got a significantly increased risk of dementia. And I'm not sure if they took that number accurately from the JAMA study, but anyway, that's what's here. If your job requires a lot of desk and computer time, look for opportunities during the day to be in motion. Stroll around your office when you're on the phone. Schedule walking meetings. Pick up your lunch instead of having it delivered.
Go up and down the stairs.
Move more, zoom less. Here we are zooming. Of course, this study was associational and can't prove that sitting causes cognitive decline. So there's a correlation. They can't prove that it's a causation, okay? But it's pretty, you know, when the numbers are this strong, it's like, think about it.
Well, I don't like to think that I even sit for any. I can't even sit for a couple hours. You know, I barely can sit through the game show programs in the evenings on television. You know what I mean? So I do probably put a couple hours into that, but generally I don't like to sit around at all. I like to move up and down. You know, you never think about it. I mean, how would you? What are they doing? Maybe these people answer phones or something all day long. You know, there's call services or something like that. Maybe those guys are stuck in that sitting position all day long.
Well, I mean,
let the world be warned, I suppose.
Yeah. So here's the last sentence. The encouraging news about oversitting, though, is that it can be undone, Raikland said. That's the scientist. Sit more, move more. That's the message, and we probably can't repeat it enough. So it's real straightforward. Get off your butts, folks. Get off your butts.
Sit more, move more. Yeah.
Sit more, move more. So.
You know, there was I remember flashback many years ago. There was a receptionist in the school I went to, and she was a lovely lady, and I never saw her below the waist. I never saw her standing up, and she was there for years. And the day that I did see her completely, I was amazed.
Okay.
from the like waist up. She wasn't heavy at all, but from the waist down, she was completely out of proportion. It was just amazed me. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, all those years sitting behind a desk answering the phone 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
day in, day out,
Probably
took,
contributed to that.
took
Yeah.
its toll. Now that I look back on it.
But-
Well, I have I've been myself, I have been a little bit of under the weather.
Yes, you have. Tell me
Yeah,
about that.
I
Tell
was
me.
not well. Yeah, I wasn't feeling well, and I was diagnosed with a I call it UV, UVF, uh, um, an unknown viral phenomenon,
Unknown viral phenomenon.
and that's pretty what they said. Pretty
Just so
much,
you know, phenomenon starts with a P, and
it'll never start with a
not
P.
UVF.
It'll never start with a P.
Okay.
So it was
Have it your
it was,
way. Have it
yeah,
your way.
strange. A strange situation, and you're thinking, well, okay, if I have this, but it's I think one other time in my life, many years ago, was something like this came up, and it's just one of them things that you can't take anything for it. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Except
Got to ride it out.
the
Rest and water. Right.
the dehydration factor, major concern for me individually, but for everybody, I guess it's just you got to drink a lot of fluids, and then they did put me on a drip, so I did get to do some of that. But I'm always quite experienced in some ER activity. Been there enough times for other things, and over time. But I like the term blood work. You're familiar with that, right? You get blood work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't we
Yeah.
all?
You know, I never dreamt that that would become part of my routine as I got older.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
one of the things they didn't tell us about getting old. Hey, but we're still kicking.
I mean that is so pervasive. Like, if whatever they want to check, you gotta queue up, and they gotta take blood. And I mean, and I'm kind of paranoid about needles. In fact, I'm terribly paranoid about needles. But I did have to
I
grit
didn't
my
know
teeth.
that.
And oh yeah, I think it had to do when I was little. We used to get all those shots, like polio shots. You remember those things?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I swear those things were using the needles the size of pencils, and they would hit me right in the bone on my arm.
That's when we were scrawny. Yeah.
Yeah, I hated that. I mean, I was terrified of that. So I grew up with a big fear of those needles. But the last flu shots and stuff, the needles were really micro. I mean, they were really small, and I didn't feel too much of that. And then what am I going to do? There's guys who are working a lot on my good vein.
Your good one.
Well, the vein that is the least troublesome.
Yeah, the juicy one, sure.
Yeah. So the one that works the best, because if you find a bad one, I mean, you get a bad phlebotomist or something like that, and they miss that needle, they start wiggling around in there, or they start calling for backup. I mean, your arm's all black and blue, you're sore, and I had a good vein many years ago. They just collapsed it and never came back.
They love to see me when it's time to take blood, because man, I make a fist and those veins pop out like hemorrhoids or something, man. It's like, yeah, we like this guy.
Well, in your case, that's a plus.
It is a plus, yeah,
because they don't have to be
no
probing around for this thing.
Yeah.
So I said, isn't it remarkable that a vessel like that, an artery like that, or a vein like that, can be poked so many times in a very similar spot and still maintain its integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was like, boy, one day it's going to be like a inner tube with too many patches in it or something. It's just not going to hold up anymore. Anyhow, so I went through all that, and I'm still on the sort of washed out end of that unknown virus. I'm still a little pale, according to my.
Well, that's
my
why we're
wife.
doing the podcast late. We had to wait for you to get back among the living here.
Oh, I probably would have got dizzy and gave up halfway through it before, but
so those people have been pacing all weekend waiting for the old bucks to drop. Blame you.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. We are victims of time and age ourselves. So it's not like we can guarantee that every Wednesday will be full of vim and vigor. You never know what's going to crop up
You
that
never
is going
know.
to slow us down in some form.
You never
But
know.
all in all, so far I've made through it. I'm on the recovery side of that now, and
Get your flu shots, folks. Get your flu shots.
I did get that. I had that, and I had
Okay.
that 19 shot. I didn't get that other virus, that
RSV.
RSV. I didn't get that, but they did check for that. They
Uh-huh.
took some X-rays just to make
Okay.
sure I wasn't suffering from anything like that.
Okay.
And this is the funny thing. They sat me in a room instead of in a bed, like they little emergency room beds.
Yeah.
And it was a room where they generally put people to take blood and wait for whatever.
Yeah.
So I sat there for about 4.5 hours. I'm telling you what, I
You
was
sat
so
there
sore.
4.5 hours.
I'm telling you, I was
That's
laying this
that's
way and that
that's
way.
part of the 10. That's part of that 10, buddy. That all counts.
I was I was so sore, and I was this way and that way, and I was trying to rest and everything. I said, you folks could have did something to knock me out for 4 hours.
Oh,
You could have given me a break on this thing or something.
geez.
Anyhow, that's my story
That's your story.
on my
Okay.
most recent adventure. Whatever company makes needles, I think that would be a good investment. I mean, they go through needles and those things. They must, whoever, probably made in China, I imagine, you think?
Probably.
I mean, to make billions, and they must make billions of those
Right.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's
So
my observation of
that's
that.
your
And
observation. That's your stock pick.
that's
That's your stock pick of the week.
my
Okay.
stock pick. So
Go buy needles. Okay. Hey, speaking of stocks, I'd like to turn back the hands of time again here. I'm looking at our June 9th, 2021 episode. This was season 2, episode 23, when we talked about NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
yeah.
Okay. And
Yep.
we explained the whole process of how you can put one up for sale and what it means when you own one and what it doesn't mean. And I think
We were going to attempt to do that, didn't it? Until you
well,
researched it,
yeah, it was we were going to do it for a joke.
which is still your screensaver.
Which is still my screensaver. Yeah. But in the end we said, look, folks, it's a scam. Okay. This is a scam. This is not real. This is all smoke and mirrors. And someday that will become evident to all these people with lots of money and not so many brains buying this stuff. Okay. Well, here's an update. An NFT of Twitter's first tweet sold for 2.9 million back then. 2.9 million. It's now worth $280. How's that for a bad investment?
Pardon me for laughing, but
Yeah.
what must the owner of that feel like?
Yeah.
I'd be too embarrassed to even admit that I was the owner of that thing.
In 2022, NFT trading volume fell 97%. Now, here's a couple quotes from Business Insider. Most NFTs may now be worthless less than 2 years after a bull run in the digital collectibles. Out of the top collections, the most common price for an NFT is now $5 to $100. How's that? And then there's one more quote here. A study examining more than 73,000 NFT collections found that 95% had a market value roughly equal to zero. Zero. How's that?
So the people who really made the money on this was the ones that jumped in and sold NFTs.
Yeah. Sold or resold early on. Yeah.
And they laughed all the way to the bank.
Yeah. And of course, Sam Bankman-Fried's in court right now. And part of this was him and his company going up in smoke. I don't know what it was, $28 billion disappeared, something like that. So I'm not shedding any tears for Sam.
Well, we suspected it. I mean, even we
We
talked about it
did.
then, that we was
Yes. This
like,
can't
how
be.
foolish was it to own something on your computer? I mean, it's like, oh, look, you want to see a picture on my computer of an NFT I own, or I can look at it anytime I want to.
Right.
I never saw any sense in it at all.
Exactly.
Are we just too practical or too clever? It must be. I don't know.
Both, I guess. Not too often people tell us we're clever, but so I'll say
We're bucks and we're old, but we're not
we're old and
dumb
we're bucks,
bucks.
but we're not stupid. We told you so. Listen to us. Here's some more some updates. You remember the interview that I had with Jean-Luc in France last summer, and we stayed one night in his castle, as it were, his mini
Oh yeah,
castle.
yeah.
And it was
He's having
just
the auction, wasn't he?
full. The auction was going on this week, yeah. And Paul Triguet, who we also interviewed, and he was the guy that was up here. He and his wife were intent on buying 3 or 4 or 5 of the pieces, and I started getting text messages from him. He says everything's going for 5 or 6 or 7 times what the estimate was. He says,
oh wow,
we're getting shut out of all this stuff. But he did say he was able to buy two sets of candelabras for over 100 euros each, and then they got a little table that he was able to get that he really wanted. But they paid like 6 or 7 times what they wanted to pay for it. So Jean-Luc's doing well. So good for him. So there's a time where he must have collected the right stuff, or his timing was good. So,
well, he had a pretty
Congratulations.
vast collection there, and he was
very
he was
vast.
downsizing
Yep.
for a purpose. He
For a
was
purpose. Going back to take care of mom.
I looked at some of that stuff, and it's very unique, I suppose.
It is unique. A lot of very unique stuff there. Yeah. So anyway, good.
And you would have to
Good
have
for
a
him.
house, I guess, that could accommodate it or something.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. I mean, people not, it's not one guy buying it all, but yeah, it's different. But
that's interesting.
good for him. Yeah. Let's see what other news we have here. Oh, I have. We used to have our Bug of the Month club, and then of course the spotted lanternflies kind of took that over. And I just got out of Pittsburgh with that.
Why talk about other bugs? I mean,
I'm going to talk about another bug. I'm going to say that earthworms. I'm decreeing earthworms the bug of the month, and this is from an article that I saw in Nature Communications magazine. And they said their findings indicated that earthworms contributed to roughly 6.5% of global grain. That would be maize, rice, wheat, and barley. And 2.3% of legume production, equivalent to over 140 million metric tons annually. And that's something who would ever think that? Basically, what they're doing, by the earthworms crawling through the ground and aerate it and pooping everywhere, they're making the ground 6.5% more productive than it would have been So that's a pretty amazing statistic. They contribute 10% of the total grain production in sub-Saharan Africa, 8% in Latin America and the Caribbean.
They're not under threat, are they? You're not.
No, there aren't that many fishermen out there, but I think they're okay.
Do you know that you remember when we were little? I used to go out at night after a little rain or something like that, and you could always get enough bait.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen an earthworm in so long. I wasn't even sure they were still around.
They're still around. They're going to be here when we're gone.
I don't see them. I don't see them here in Florida.
Well, do what we used to do: is get a copper rod, attach it to one end of a 110 line, jam it in the ground, and water the ground. Man, did you ever do that?
No,
I did that.
I never went to that trouble.
I used to do that. Man,
most likely I would have got shocked.
Yeah, well, he kind of did a little bit.
I was, something that had been troubling me. I was, we were fortunate enough to have a guest in Frank young, that just amazingly knowledgeable, and I think I would call him a real statesman, don't you think?
Oh, Frank Young, yeah,
Yeah, Frank Young is almost. I mean, he's
he was a
almost
statesman.
diplomatic.
Yeah. He wasn't. Yeah,
I mean, he was a diplomat, but I mean, he's just diplomatic the way he deals with, and the way he talks, and the way he looks at things, his perspective. The circumstances that surrounding our support for Ukraine, our vacillation. I think currently we have sent a message to the world that we are not totally reliable.
we're just kidding. Yeah.
I mean, we changed directions as soon as we changed, whoever's in charge of the Congress or something. And I mean, I don't think the world we're going to have to be more stable, more consistent in our policies, which now this is a tough question. We would technically have to work together to do that and then support that on a regular basis. But I mean,
That doesn't seem to be the thing
no,
that's
it doesn't
happening.
look like that's the
Yeah.
road we're going down. But I mean, with the judicial system able to undo court precedent at the whim, of certain politicians or something. So this vacillation with the Ukrainian support and what it might message it might send to the world, I think it troubles me. And I mean, I don't know how this is
it
going
troubles
to play
me.
out.
Yeah, it's the message that it troubles me. I mean, I
Mm.
think practically speaking, look, we're not, for the most part, we're not running the printing presses and mailing them billions of dollars of fresh printed money. The aid we're giving them is U.S. equipment. And it's the older U.S. equipment, of which we have vast stockpiles. Okay, ammunition maybe is another issue, but that's going to keep happening. There is a pipeline there. So, but yeah, this is embarrassing, and it sends a signal to the world that maybe is not solidarity here, which is unfortunate.
Or we're not a reliable partner. That's what I'm afraid. And if it gets any more crazy, I mean, I just wonder where it's all going to go. I think it's even fostering a certain bravery amongst. There's always an underlying current of I wouldn't call it negativity, rebellion, let's say, going on around the world all the time. That's usually suppressed when times are good. You don't have too much of it, but go through a bad time and it just surfaces, and next thing you know, you have a coup.
Mm-hmm. A lot of populist regimes
and
popping up here.
Things are popping up, switching sides, and anybody that'll donate ammunition and weapons or something like that, or in exchange for whatever resources may be around. So all this stuff is creeping up, and it's like, man, things could get so out of balance that it would be like the most players you could get on one side would be three. You know what I mean? Because everybody else is on the other side of the team. And then now this, have you noticed the news? Israel,
I just saw that this morning. Israel is at war again. That's what the world needs.
Well, that's another factor disturbing where the resources go. You know, I mean, how many fires can we put out going on at the same time? So anybody that wants to start a fire may say, "Oh, here's my opportunity, and let's just take this island over because we want it." And there you go. So I don't know if it's going to change, but I am. It's just something that troubles me, and I guess it becomes a personal thing. It's things that I can't change, but I see a lot of bad potential down the road for everybody if we don't get our act together and resolve some issues. So,
okay, well, listen, there's a lot going on in the world. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Let's hear it for the earthworms and
3 cheers for the earthworms.
3 cheers for the earthworms. Yeah, and
no other bad bugs.
And other bad bugs. Yeah,
except those little unseen ones. Keep dodging those. All you listeners out there, keep dodging the the unknown viruses,
Virus, yeah.
and
yeah.
any virus you can dodge, knowingly that are out there, you can dodge.
Get your
those.
flu
So
shot.
Stay well, stay healthy, stay tuned in,
I second that. Absolutely.
and write into the old bucks with your thoughts and opinions on anything.
So all the
Get
old
in touch
bucks
with us.
think. Yeah. You got a couple ways that you can get hold of us.
Hey, with that thought, Dave, you have a great stay and vacation up in Nashville, and I'll see you at the coffee shop when you get back, obviously. And this
That's
is
a
a Buck Dale saying thank you very much.
And we will drink our coffee standing up. That's an hour. We'll get an hour back that way. Just think about it.
Okay,
All right.
folks.
Sounds
See you
good.
next time.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.